I'm going to call the recommending meeting to order. The time now is 9 a.m. Are we in compliance with the open meeting law?
Yes, we are.
Okay. With that being said, we will move to bill number 2010-34, which revises the provisions regarding the on-site parking, storage, and repair of vehicles in residential districts. This is sponsored by none other than Councilman Stephen D. Ross.
I had expected either planning or neighborhood services to be here to present this, but I will try to do it myself. This is basically cleanup that makes enforcement easier. They've relaxed some of the rules on the side yard, including allowing pavers and decomposed granite, which used to be the case. There's a stricter limitation on the number of vehicles that can be repaired in the yard. Limitation on parking duration for certain types of vehicles. And this was basically recommended by code enforcement to help them with their vehicle parking and storage enforcement efforts. There's a definition of mechanically inoperable to help them decide when a vehicle
Could you
is
pull this closer?
and for purposes of the limitation on types of repairs, there's a definition of normal, reasonable, and customary repairs that are kinds of things that you might do at your home in the yard. So recommend approval.
Did you get all that, Angela? Okay.
If I may, Councilman?
Yes, sir.
Val hit it on the head. And there's been great concern about the repairs being done in people's homes. This is not an ordinance or a bill that allows anybody to do automobile repair work for money out of their houses or out of their side yards. This does clean up and give our code enforcement officers the ability to actually regulate this a little more. And I think it's significant that Alan's here from the press that this is, customary repairs, changing your oil and that sort of thing only, and that's recognized in the bill. So,
Thank you, Councilman. And also for the record, I'm glad to see that we're moving forward with something more strong, or I should say stronger, as it relates to auto repair in yards, because there are a number of homes throughout my district that individuals have chosen to make their front yard, side yard, and also backyard an auto repair commercial business. And so this will most definitely give code enforcement an opportunity to go in and regulate that because of the aesthetics in the community, bringing down the community with oil and motors sitting on the front yard, sitting out on city streets. We have an opportunity to now to go forward and clean this up and to continue to keep the integrity and the beauty of our streets in place. So with that, I would like to open this item up for public comment. If there's anyone willing or wishing to speak on this item, please come forward, state your name for the record. Seeing none, Councilman.
I would make a motion and follow staff's recommendation and move to send to City Council with a due pass.
Okay. And also for the record, let me inform everyone that bills that are moved out of this committee today will be eligible for adoption at the September 1st City Council meeting. So with the motion of due pass, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Bill number 2010-35 repeals certain outdoor advertising restrictions concerning hotels, motels, and other lodging establishments, and repeals similar restrictions concerning wedding chapels. This is sponsored by Bradford R. Jerbick, our city attorney. Staff?
Yes, thank you, committee members. This bill repeals something that we have been using for many years. It appears that back in the 60s sometimes, in a previous version of the code, there was a chapter called False and Misleading Advertising, and it called out signage used by both motels and hotels and other lodging establishments and wedding chapels. And the prohibition was that you couldn't put out on a sign on the street any reference to your rates in terms of numbers, any qualitative statement like, we got the best rates, we got the worst rates. I don't think anybody put that. we've got great bargains, you know, 2 for the price of 1. It was just something that was in vogue at that time. It may have been a function of aesthetics, but probably was a function of misleading advertising and people driving in and, you know, finding out what the price is and then going next door. And so it's been on the books since then. It's been moved around a little bit in chapters, so that one was in a wedding chapter, and one was in a lodging house, or a motel, hotel, and rooming house chapter. In around 1960, there was a Nevada Supreme Court case on a state law that had this regarding hotels and motels. And the Nevada Supreme Court said, this is fine, this is perfectly okay to regulate this sort of thing. Beginning about the mid-'70s, the United States Supreme Court started giving more protection to commercial speech, commercial advertising, established rules by which you would have to establish your governmental interest, show that you were adopting something that was the least amount of regulation necessary to address that interest, and you had to be equal between types of businesses. And so in 1990, our Nevada Attorney General was asked the question with respect to either a state law or local ordinance that was doing the same thing, and it was that Attorney General's opinion that based on the new Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court holdings, that these provisions wouldn't withstand scrutiny, that they could be adopted, but you'd have to justify why you were singling out hotels, motels, and wedding chapels as opposed to everybody else who charges something, which is everyone. And so basically since that time, we have not enforced those. From time to time, someone will get a call, maybe to enforce one of these things, and there'll be a code enforcement employee who doesn't know this and hasn't seen the memo, so to speak, and so he'll follow up, and then there'll be a complaint about, why are you guys doing this against me? You don't do anything else. So there was a suggestion made to Mr. Jervik that we just take it off the books. It certainly could be revisited again someday in a global effort if somebody thought that they could justify the ordinance. But right now, since there's no, I won't say there's no appetite anywhere to enforce it, but there's certainly not an appetite on the part of the city to enforce it because of the problems that we would foresee in court. So it's
Okay.
Deemed best just to take them off the books.
Will do. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this item? If so, please come forward and state your name for the record. Seeing none, Councilman?
I believe staff's recommendation would then be to go ahead and move this on to City Council with a do pass recommendation. That's my motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Bill number 2010-36 repeals the sunset provisions regarding the prohibition of alcoholic beverages in city parks except pursuant to a permit or other written authorization. This is sponsored by Mayor Pro Tem Gary Reese and Councilwoman Lois Tarkanian. Please come forward and state your name for the record. Staff?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Councilman Barlow, Councilman Roth, Billy Bastian, Department Director for Leisure Services. Would you like me to go ahead and present?
Please.
In June 17th of 2009, Council took action to approve a prohibition on alcohol consumption within our park unless there was a permit or written authorization given for that opportunity to consume alcohol. With that, it went into effect in October 5th, and it is going to be sunsetted on October 1st unless there's a further extension and vote by the council to do so. I just want to give you a little bit of background of what has occurred from the direction that we received at that council presentation last year in June. We were asked to take a look at how this would impact our customers, not only from a permitting and experience in the park, but also from an enforcement perspective. We did a huge campaign with detention and enforcement with the marshals who go directly into the park and interact with the customers that are present there. And they did an education on advising the customers in the park what the ordinance would be. In addition to that, field operations put up signs at all of our parks, updating them so that customers would be aware of that. Our communications office, along with each of your offices, did a great job at reaching out to the citizens to advise them of the alcohol ordinance prohibition, and also to let them know what the benefits are to them as a citizen visiting our park. We did news releases, phone calls on wait services when individuals would call into the city so that they could hear, be educated about the ordinance. The marshals took a soft approach through this education process during this 9-month kind of trial period. And through that, we were also able to expand our reservation locations where individuals could get a permit from us from 1 to 8 locations. We're going to also see a decrease in those when we come to you before September 1st for our formal presentation. If the Darlington Center is awarded a operating agreement tomorrow to an outside contractor. That was one of our sites. We also gave same-day permits to individuals so that if they chose to go to a reservation site on a same-day basis, we'd be able to give a permit. Prior to that, we had to have a 14-day reservation period. We also increased the shelters. We looked at 1,449 permits, and out of that, 652 said that they were going to consume alcohol in the permitted areas that they identified to us. That was about a 45% alcohol acknowledgement, and that was across the board in all wards at all pavilions. The marshals, who couldn't be here today to report, but certainly have given me good information, indicated that they only had approximately 7 interactions with the community under the law enforcement. They're reporting that this has actually been a good thing for them to have an additional tool to all the other enforcement opportunities that they have to help keep our parks safer. Our risk manager had indicated there was about $263,000, almost $264,000 in workman's comp claims in the last 10 years, and that they're happy to report that during that 10-year period there were 25 injuries, and that there was only 1 during this observation trial period.
That's significant in savings to the city alone, just in regards to that.
In addition to, in regards to savings, another comment, the field operations individuals kept track of how much time that they had spent extracting glass in the park, because oftentimes alcohol is consumed in glass containers, and they were indicating that there was a 30% decline in the time that they spent removing broken glass and glass bottles in the park. That just concludes kind of the general information that I have in regards to what we were able to observe during this 9-month period since the ordinance went into effect.
Great, thank you so very much. Councilman?
Can I make a comment, Mr. Chairman?
Please, I know you're biting at the bit. It's like a NASCAR.
I got to tell you, I was apprehensive when this ordinance came about.
Right.
I was kind of apprehensive about
Yeah.
it. I mean, because
I think I voted against it.
I thought we were going to get a lot of complaints and people breaking the law, and I'm sure we're getting some of that out there. People are drinking at the parks without pulling permits and the whole 9 yards. But these numbers don't lie. I mean, just the significant savings in risk management or work injuries, and then the glass in the parks has certainly created a much safer environment for families and children to go to the parks. I think also, as you were giving that report, it kind of gave us a good read on everybody's drinking at the park.
Right.
In reference to your comment, I did neglect to report out, there was a concern about customer complaints that might come in with the prohibition. We did receive approximately 3 complaints, 1 to the mayor's office and 2 to ours. We did ask the people within your office who were very much involved in helping us track any customer calls that came in. And the report came back from all the areas who were tracking this, only those 3 calls. All 3 of those individuals indicated they didn't want to put anything formally in writing. They understood the policy, and they just wanted clarification and understanding of how it impacted them directly, what the permitting process would be going forward. So those were the only 3 comments we had during this 9-month period.
I have a question for you. Going forward, do you think that we would be in a good position if we were to, for example, put up some type of kiosk where One, if the councilman and I decided to take our families to the park on Sunday, just on a whim, and we wanted to take some alcohol into the park for us to swipe our credit card at the little kiosk entering the park and give us a permit to
We're
do
looking at
that?
two things, studying two things, still continuing, whether individuals can do their own permitting online so that we can look at more opportunities for customers to have longer periods of time where they can have access to a permit, and we definitely can take a look and study that. We'd have to invest in the equipment. There would have to be a collection center format that goes with that. But we have 67 parks, and we have to take a look at those that we permit and see, I'd have to do a cost benefit analysis.
Yeah,
just to see the equipment.
because I'm just thinking of it in the sense of parking. You go to other cities and you go to malls in other cities and you get the the ticket when you come in, and then as you leave the mall and entering the parking, you stick the ticket back in the machine and you can pay for your parking. And so I'm thinking moving forward, if in fact this is something that becomes a demand, we can consider having some type of kiosk where
Where they can do more
where they
self-managed, self-directed with a
yes,
credit card or a
self-managed,
debit.
self-directed with a credit card. And if the marshals come up and someone's drinking, the marshal can say, well, I see you're drinking, do you have your permit? Well, I didn't know I needed a permit. Well, you need to go over to this kiosk and, get your appropriate
Get right
permit
inside.
and, continue to enjoy yourself.
I'll definitely take a look at that.
Yeah.
It's a good comment, Councilman Barlow.
I think, Mr. Chairman, in the interim, though, providing those services online is a major cost savings to us as the city, and certainly as we as the consumer or the family that wants to go to that park, we don't just go online, type it in. It's kind of like Fandango for the park. You buy movie tickets online, you print it out, you use your credit card or your account, and you're done. So I think
We will be studying that and moving away from a call center approach to maybe a more self-managed, self-directed approach to a system management.
Well, I think many services in the city, even the building department, there are some discussions about trying to streamline some of the services we provide as a city, making them available to do it online, so we don't have to come down here. We don't have to come down here to do some paperwork and that sort of thing, so.
And also so that in the interim, while we're working with IT to help integrate that system.
It's when you start the jargon that it kicks off.
All right.
One of the connections. That's okay. Okay, are you good? Can you restart?
Go ahead.
Okay, we're back on, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Is
There
there
are parking connections.
All right. That pretty much concludes all of my comments. Unless you have more questions, I can help you.
Thank you. Councilman?
Nope, I'm, no more questions.
Motion?
Is this a public hearing? The people need to,
Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please come forward, state your name for the record. Seeing none, Councilman?
Mr. Chairman, I'll follow staff's recommendation to send to city council the due pass.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Bill number 2010-37 amends the City Administrative Code to adopt new fee tables applicable to permits, inspections, and other services performed in connection with the city's technical codes and to make other permitted-related adjustments, sponsored by Councilman Gary Reese. Staff?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I think we should hold off till Chris Knight, Director of Building and Safety, returns.
Mr. Knight, you're up.
Thank you.
State your name for the record, please.
Chris Knight, Director of Building and Safety. Let me grab my stuff here. We started a process 2 years ago to begin to look at our fees. When I got into the Building and Safety Department, our budgets were running over, and for the last 2 years, we have been able to bring our budgets in. Last year at a positive number, and this year at a positive number of about $22,000. We have a $7 million budget. When you're coming in positive at $22,000 on a $7 million budget, you're barely breaking even, which is all we really want to do. However, the way that we've been able to do that is there was a staff reduction of 35 folks in March of 2009, and another staff reduction of another 9 folks in June of 2010, which is what brought us to the point of being able to have a balanced budget.
Can I stop on that? What was the second staff reduction?
Nine folks, 9 positions.
Thank you.
Prior to that, in May of 2008, there was a reduction of 31 positions. So in the past 3 years, we have gone from 124 positions to 45, to about 45, I think. I hope that math's right. Might be off by 1 or 2 digits. But when I came into the department and began to look at the fees, our fees are based upon valuation. And when we have, the City of Las Vegas has created an enterprise fund in 2001 to fund the Building and Safety Department. And when you look at the expenditures allowed for a Building and Safety Department under state statutes, under NRS 354-59891, it says the local government can't use any of the money in the enterprise fund for any purpose than the actual direct and indirect costs of the program for issuance of barricade permits, encroachment permits, and building permits, including without limitation. And it specifies what your cost should be, and that is the cost of checking plans, issuing permits, inspecting buildings, and administering the program. We set about to establish a fee schedule that was directly tied to the costs of checking plans, issuing permits, inspecting buildings, and administering the program. There is no nexus. Well, there is an intuitive nexus, if you will, on a valuation-based fee schedule that says if the value of a building is higher, the level of effort to review the plans, inspect the building, and to administer the program, to do that work, the costs are higher. If the value of the work is lower, the costs are lower. But that's an intuitive nexus. It's very difficult to empirically prove that. So we moved to develop a fee-based system that is a cost-based system. In other words, how much time does it take us? How much effort does it take us to review those plans, to do the inspections, to administer, to do the training and do those things? So we set about a very intensive program to study the efforts of the Building and Safety Department, the number of hours each employee has actually available when you take out the benefits, you take out time on the phone, meetings, all that stuff, how many work hours are actually available, and how much time we actually spend doing that work. And we came to a cost-based system that it says it costs us, based on the salaries and everything else, to operate this business. And it is an enterprise fund, and it does operate as a business. And we looked at those fees, and when we got done, the increases would be about 65–70%. We are asking for 25% because we do not believe that under the current economic conditions that our customers can handle, given everybody knows about the economy, can handle that type of increase. When we did our study, the valuation-based fee schedule that we have gave us a cost recovery rate of 48%. Now you know why we've been laying people off, because we are only covering 48% of our costs, and we're trying to recoup that loss in those costs through labor reductions. And we can no longer reduce labor to the point this last RIF of 9 persons took us below our service levels. We are now having holdovers on inspections. We are having our review times on plans checked. Councilman Ross can attest to the fact that we have been getting complaints, can't get my plans out. We're trying to get our plans out. We're extremely attendance sensitive because we don't have enough staff to cover. Yesterday, we had difficulties with our permit techs and attendance. 1 or 2 people call in sick, and we don't have enough people to serve the public. The purpose of these fees then is twofold. One, to tie it more directly to a rational nexus of what it costs to operate the enterprise fund doing cost-based fees, and 2, to stabilize our revenues where we have managed our costs, everything within my power as the director of the Building and Safety Department to manage those costs and get those costs to a point where now we have to look at our fees. There was no way we were going to come and ask for an increase in fees if we hadn't done everything we could to do our costs. We have worked with the home builders, the AGC. They have understood our process and do not object to our fee increases. They're not happy about it. They don't. No one likes fee increases. Not sure we like fee increases. But they have told me, in speaking with the two executive directors, that they will not object to the fee increases. I have a letter in my documentation from the Structural Engineering Society of Southern Nevada not objecting to our fee increases. We did get feedback from the American Institute of Architects, and we got feedback from the National Association of Industrial Office Properties. They both wrote letters to us, had about 7 or 8 points in each letter. We have responded to those letters. Some of the things that they asked we thought made perfect sense. There were 2 things in particular on the NAIOP letter about the definition of high-rise buildings, conforming more with the International Building Code. We have made that change in our ordinance and in our policies. It is 55 feet or higher is high-rise. Anything below 55 feet is considered low-rise. There were some other questions about how we would apply our proposed fees to shell buildings. We had some variations. When you look at a shell building, is basically 4 walls and a roof. And looking at a shell building and the price that it costs us to do plan review and inspections on shell buildings, it should be fairly consistent when you only have those components. They pointed out some discrepancies. We now have changed those. Those are in the fee schedule that Val has put together. And then one other thing was the trigger. We asked for 25% to be effective immediately. Take a 1-year period to see what happens with that 25%, to allow time for several things a couple of things to happen. One, to see what the impact of the 25% fee increase in and of itself is. Give time for the economy to begin to recover. Give time for us to look at our estimates of time and our accounting of the level of effort that we put into things to make sure that we're right. Time for the ongoing negotiations on labor and the work that the city manager's office is doing to reduce costs for labor and everything in the city. All of that to happen within a year, so we're not asking for a fee increase, we're asking for this incrementally. If we had a 48% cost recovery, we're proposing to increase our fees over time 50%. Now that doesn't do anything with the scheduled cost of living increases or anything like that. So we would ask for another 15% in 2012, nothing in 2011, and another 10% in 2013. That would bring us to a 56% cost recovery. And that gets us as close as we can to being cost recovery and giving opportunity for us to manage things and to do things well. But if we do not stabilize our fees right now with this 25% increase, we are projected to lay more people off for the next fiscal year budget. It's just that simple. That's the only way we've been able to manage the budget. The trigger in the cost increases in 2012 and 2013, there's been some concern about accountability of the building official in doing that trigger. So we have added language into section 304.10 of the ordinance that says that before July 1 of 2012, the building official has to take a look at the finances and how the fees have been performing. It also says, following the completion of the review, the building official will present the results of the review to the City of Las Vegas Building and Safety Enterprise Fund Committee, which is a committee that is established by state statute for enterprise fund. The membership of that committee is a representative of the Home Builders Association, member of the Associated General Contractors, and a member of the construction industry at large, the city finance director and the city building official. So I would have to present that to the Enterprise Fund Committee, and then if it was determined that we needed to go ahead with that fee increase, it's already in the ordinance, it's determined we do not need it, an item would be placed on the City Council agenda to not do the fee increase. The City of Las Vegas Enterprise Fund Committee has met multiple times on these fees, and at 2 different occasions has voted to support these fee increases. And again, the membership is AGC, home builders, and construction industry owners. So they've understood this, have worked with us on that, and trying to be succinct in a 2-year effort is kind of hard for me, but that's really our recommendation, is that we'd ask for the fee increases. We have tried to accommodate those that have had concerns as much as possible and be responsive as much as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Is there anyone here willing to speak on this item or wishing to speak? If so, please come forward and state your name for the record. Thank you.
My name is Suzette LaGrange. I'm here on behalf of NAIOP.
And Ms. Suzette, what does NAIOP stand for?
It's the Association for Commercial Real Estate Development. No longer has an acronym, but it was National Association of Industrial and Office Properties.
Thank you.
And now it also incorporates retail properties. We've had the opportunity to work with Chris over the last few months, and he's been really great to work with. He's definitely addressed our concerns and worked through some of the challenges that we've had with the ordinance. Recently, in fact, just in the last few days, some information from one of our members was brought to us and brought to light some of the salaries, the staff salaries within this building department. And it seems that this 25% increase is merely a Band-Aid for a much deeper-rooted problem within the Building and Safety Department. I know Chris has his hands tied because of collective bargaining on this issue, but nonetheless, we want to bring it to light. I think it would behoove us and our membership to just sit back and say, you know, hey, fine, let's go ahead and increase fees. That would be just great. When really this is a challenging time for all of us, and a 25% increase on zero activity is not going to continue to pay the salaries that are booked for this department. That being said, I think the development community understands that we need to pay for growth, and we're completely open to paying for reasonable cost of services, given industry standard pay. We don't expect it to be subsidized by the general fund in any way. So, we have responsible developers and responsible business owners in the community. The information that's provided in this package basically lays out the salaries based on a website called transparentnevada.com. And again, there's always reporting differences by municipalities. We understand that, but nonetheless, this information is compiled from the same source. That, from my understanding, has been scrubbed and tries to be as consistent as possible. You'll see the first page, or third page in your packet, information on the City of Las Vegas pay, and the increases over the past few years based on the information on this website. And then later on, you'll see City of Henderson pay. In many cases, the employees, and this is not an all-inclusive list, by all means, this is just a sampling. Again, we just got our hands on this information. Pay has decreased between 2008 and 2009 in the City of Henderson. The next is City of North Las Vegas. Again, for the same or similar jobs, salaries are much, much less. And then for Clark County, again, they're typically less than the City of Las Vegas, but certainly not by much. So they have very inflated salaries as well. Anyway, we want to go on record saying that there's a much deeper rooted problem. I don't think that the building and construction development industry is, the 25% fee increase is going to take us out of whack with the other municipalities. It's not. But given an increase in costs or in permit fees, we expect an increase in service. And looking at the numbers, it's really impossible for Chris to be able to deliver an increase in services for more money. In light of the salary information that we have. So, we kind of bulleted some of our challenges that we have with this. There's an item for extraordinary plans check and inspection time that is very vague and could cause abuse in its interpretation. We have asked that there be an appeals board created with industry and department staff. That was denied. Chris felt that it was just to be department staff and that nobody from the private sector should be included in that, and we don't agree with that. And then we have believed there should be minimum standard turnaround times and guidelines to be established that, you know, if we're paying for a service, we should get it within a reasonable amount of time. So, again, I want to commend Chris. He's done a fantastic job of working with us. But there are some deeply rooted issues in this. And another concern that we have is by allowing the automatic, and I'll say they're automatic. He did insert language into the ordinance that allows him to present the budgets to the Building Enterprise Fund. But it's still based on the building official whether he needs those subsequent increases. Is it necessary to automatically grant those just based on him saying we need them? Is this, given the salary challenges, and I know you guys are working on that, I think it would behoove us to bring forth a new ordinance at that time, that those not just be automatic extensions. So that's a concern that we have. And we know we need to Band-Aid the system right now, because we have to get, I mean, time is money in the construction industry. If we have a tenant that needs to get in 60 days, the landlord's losing money, who's going to pay for that? We have to provide a minimum level of service. So anyway, I'll be glad to answer questions, or we can discuss this. We tried to address some of the inconsistency with the plans check fees based on 4 walls and a roof, a 20,000-foot shell building. Be it office, retail, or industrial, is really 4 walls and a roof. Just because it's zoned differently doesn't mean that it takes a lot more time to plans check or a lot more time to inspect. But yet, based on his analysis, it does. So a lot of that doesn't really make much sense. You know, we understand that these schedules are based on the actual time it's supposed to take. And then there's also some challenges or some discrepancies with the new extended shell. Of course, we haven't even had a chance to talk about that. But the extended shell doesn't really make much sense, the way that it fits into the matrix there. So anyway, I will leave it at that.
Okay. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak on this item? If so, please come forward. State your name for the record. Sorry, Councilman.
That's okay. I left as a Middletown.
Okay.
Get up, Steve.
Good morning, I'm Don King, I'm the president of the Las Vegas City Employees
Believe me,
Association.
I get mine too. Yes, sir.
I'd like to start by commending Mr. Knight for what he's done over the last couple of years. Chris inherited a mess when he took over the Department of Building and Safety. Yes, there's been layoffs. I'm here to say that we are still talking with the city as far as concessions. We've been asked to come back to the table. As the head of the largest labor organization of the city, I've agreed to talk to the city again about concessions. I don't know where concession talks will end up at, but we are willing to talk. We understand that there are issues. But I think it's also important, we're also members of the community. Our employees, those that work in the building department, are taxpayers, they're citizens, they're voters. Increases impact us just as they do everybody else. I support what Chris is asking for. That's all I have to offer.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? If so, please come forward, state your name for the record. Seeing none. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, Chris, you certainly have done what I asked many, many months ago when you approached me. I come from the construction industry. I get it. I understand what's going on out there. You approached Ms. LaGrange's group, the Home Builders Association, AGC, the architects, and that's significant. And I say that because I don't think that we as government always have the answers. I certainly, as a policymaker, need that input from industries we affect. If we were talking about building a horse arena, we'd have the equestrian people in here talking to us about horse arenas. That's just how I feel about things. So I commend you on doing that, and Suzette, I'm glad that you're here too to voice your concerns and thoughts, because they're ours as well. We as council members, staff, we don't want to raise fees, especially in this economic environment. Our goal is to stimulate economic activity, stimulate your prospective clients and prospective developers to want to do business in the city of Las Vegas. You've heard me say that before. I'll keep saying it until one day we get there. So I'm not real keen on the idea of raising fees But we have a department who has essentially laid off over 50% of its staff, despite the salaries, because service is a big issue for me as well. And my question to Chris Knight, the Director of Building and Safety, was going to be, Chris, how are we going to, if we move forward with this, how are we going to address the issue of service to our prospective clients and the building and leasing industries?
Well, that's actually a two-pronged approach for us. If you recall, one of the things that Mr. Nichols, who's here, is responsible for is the development review process. Back over a year ago, I asked for the opportunity to bring a consultant on board to sit down and look at our development review process, and I asked for it for the Building and Safety Department, knowing that service was going to be an issue if we come forward with fee increases. So that was my first objective, was to address our service. The development review process, we did a study, there were 195 findings, and there is, out of the city manager's office, an effort to look at that development review process and streamline that process. And that involves not only the Building and Safety Department, but the Fire Department, Planning and Development, Land Development, Business License, and all of the entities that are involved in getting your land use entitlements and starting from A to Z and doing development in the city. So that's the first approach. The second approach is in my office alone. The things that we are able to do in building and safety. We are currently working with the AGC to expand our over-the-counter process. I have met with the plumbing, heating, and cooling contractors. They've come with an idea of, are you able to do field verifying on certain things that are small in nature that you get. I don't know how many people in here would know what a floor sink is, but if you're only doing one fixture, one floor sink in a business, can't you just take the plans, stamp them, field verify, and let the inspector do it and not do a plan review? And my answer is, yeah, we can. So we're trying to find ways that are more efficient, expanding our over-the-counter. Over-the-counter is you come in and you get your plan review within a specified amount of time right there over the counter. You pay a little more for it because we move you to the front of the line. We will continue to have our express inspections, which is extremely expensive in my book, but it's because it involves all of those departments that are in the DRP to get your first time review. But we have those things that we're working on. We have continued, one of the things that I committed, and it's the only thing that I'm going to argue with Suzette on, and that is the appeals process. In the DRP, the department, the Building and Safety Department, was criticized for our appeals process. The way the appeals process used to work is you could have a disagreement on the interpretation of a code issued, and you could file for our hearings examiner, which was really up to the building official under the provisions of the building codes, both residential and IBC, to decide how the enforcement of that building code is going to be. It is left up to one person not to politicize those decisions. That's a conscious decision because of the life safety aspects of the building codes. The way it was done in the past with the previous director is that you would then pay money, you go to a hearings examiner, and you would actually have staff from the department sitting there listening to you, and they make a group decision whether to approve your appeal or not. The funny part about that is if you were appealing Rod Clark's decision, Rod Clark was sitting in the meeting. And I think that's a perfectly legitimate criticism of us. What I have committed to doing, and the criticism on the development review process, was to have an appeals board just like that of Henderson, Clark County, and North Las Vegas. That is under Section 112 of the IBC. NAOP's letter that they sent on the fee study said, we want a Section 112 IBC appeals board. My letter back committed completely to doing that. And when we do the 2009 suite of code adoptions, we will have an appeals board in line with Section 112 of the IBC. We'll be proposing that to the City Council for your adoption. The other part that I have committed to is to establish what I call, I just threw out a name, the Building Officials Advisory Committee. It's not a binding committee on the building official, But the thing I've always wanted, and Councilman, you and I talked about this, is to be able to sit down with representatives of the industry and say, what are the things that we do or don't do that we could change, and to use your verbiage, to make doing business in the city of Las Vegas easier. And I have committed that in writing in my response back to NAIOP and AIA as well. That will be an informal committee. It comes to the building official, but it lets me hear the concerns. Like when I took over, the concerns of one inspector comes in and gives you a list, the second inspector comes in and gives you a second list of things you need to correct. We've been working on that. We're better at that. But it gives me the ability to hear those concerns. So there are lots of things I'm doing and trying to improve our service levels within our department and then continuing to operate at the DRP. So.
And if I may again, Mr. Chairman, and that's significant, Chris, because we need their input. We need their thoughts, NAIOP, AGC, home builders, because this affects them directly.
Yep.
And without that, we're kind of failing. I mean, we can sit in this room all day long and make up a whole bunch of things that we think is great for the city, but without getting input from the industries we're affecting, we're failing. So I think that is significant. You received the input from those industries, and Ms. LaGrange, thank you for being here. I want to submit this to the city clerk and put that into the record of this recommending committee so that it's in the record. But I also want your commitment and involvement to stay engaged with him. You hit it on the head. This is a Band-Aid. That's all it is. He has committed to us as the recommending committee, and we'll do the same thing kind of with the city council, that we're going to review this. How is this working? He's also going to be looking at, and I'm holding both him and the deputy city manager accountable to the services provided to the industries because of the things you just discussed, because we want to streamline that and do better, provide a better service to your clients, the ADC clients, to anybody standing down there trying to pull a permit. We have to do it. We are going to fail at reviving this economy if we don't do it. These guys get it. But I still need you to be engaged in that process, and I appreciate that. In regards to the other issues that are in your document, those are being addressed. You know that, and I want to put this on the record too, Mr. Chairman. There has been discussion about privatization of building and safety. There's been discussion about taking general fund money and giving you a shot in the arm to, make this department run, and that's still a thought in my mind. I mean, I believe the city of Henderson took that same approach many years ago and committed to give that department a chunk of change to get the ball rolling, and they have committed to that better service. I've experienced that in pulling permits in the city of Henderson, and I don't want to be in second place for the city of Las Vegas. We want to be in first place. This is where we want the work done, is here in the city of Las Vegas. So I'm done with my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so, Mr. Knight, you mentioned the 25% cost recovery, increase for cost recovery. My thought then goes to the 75%. Where is the 75% and how is the 75% paid?
There's a 25% increase. Our fees currently are at 48% cost recovery. Where the other 52% has been coming from, Councilman, has been through layoffs of labor and reduction in staff for the last 3 years. Prior to that, it was simply by volume that the Building and Safety Department was able to survive on a value-based schedule.
Volume in business.
Volume in number of permits.
Correct.
And in the size of the projects. Under a value-based system, small business projects, and I don't know where the break point is, but small, lesser value projects under valuation base do not pay for themselves. An example, a gentleman sent a letter to the mayor complaining about his building permit being $174 to replace a window. Truthfully, it was $66. It was the contractor that charged the $174 to go get the permit. But it was $66 for his permit, and when we looked at the amount of time we had in putting in the permit, issuing the permit, because we have to deal with the other departments, we had about a half hour there. We had about 20 minutes in an inspection, travel to the site, do the inspection, and we don't count lead time, we put that on the next inspection. We have about 50 minutes in it, which means at our current hourly rate of what it costs us, benefits, salaries, insurance, all the costs that are associated, we have about $135 into that $66 permit. Okay, we lose money on those things. The only way we make that up is to have higher valued permits that, again, based on valuation, pay more money for their permit than the level of service that they actually get. What the cost-based fee did is it compressed that, it brought that closer to a balance, where the lower cost projects pay a little more, the higher cost projects don't subsidize. And that's the only way that this department's been able to survive in the past, is through volume and the number of large projects. Where it comes from right now, we have done it through staff layoffs. The only other place we will be able to go is into our operating reserves. And the city manager's been very reticent for us to utilize those operating reserves at a high level. We have $4 million sitting in an operating reserve, and that isn't going to last me very long on a $7 million budget. So that's the difficulty. If we don't increase the fees, we will either have to do it through labor savings and another reduction in force, which we have already planned at least 8 people again for June of next year, and we are below those service levels. It's just a fact of life.
You had mentioned low-rise
Versus high rise.
versus high-rise. Now, I've also have heard the term mid-rise. Is there such a thing as a mid-rise?
There may be in real estate terms, but they're not in building terms. It's at 55 feet, the code requirements for some life safety things, for fire protection and other things, changes.
Okay, so 55 feet, or 55 feet is the threshold of low-rise versus high-rise.
High-rise.
Okay, great.
Can I ask one more question to Suzette? Suzette, what do you suggest, I mean, we're at this juncture today. I mean, what is NAIOP suggesting we do right now today? If we move forward with this, you're committed to working with our staff, the Director of Building and Safety, and the other agencies that he's always working with. If we move forward with this, can you stay engaged enough to see how this is going to impact and you know, kind of babysit this process? The review committee that Chris talked about, is that okay with you guys when we adopt the 2009 code? I mean, I think we're headed in the right direction. I still need a little more input because I want to know whether I want to make a motion to send this to City Council with a due pass, but give him something right now to work with, and then we address this in a few months, 6 months, a year, see where we're at. What are your thoughts?
It's hard for me to speak on behalf of the whole group at this point exactly, because again, this information was just brought to light literally Thursday. So we're still digesting it. I think if we had our druthers, we would say, can we have another 2 weeks maybe to work with him on some of these issues to see if there's any, I don't know what can be done with the salary issue, but we also just received the revised draft of the ordinance, I think just yesterday. So we haven't had a chance to really look at that language. Again, the 25% is just a Band-Aid. It's not going to solve the ultimate problem.
Well, then my question then to Mr. Knight is, would there be any problem with holding us off for 2 weeks to work with the industry an additional 2 weeks, just to make sure that we have their concerns vetted? Now, I'm not sure, Suzette, if in fact after this 2 weeks, if we come back to the table and nothing has changed, but at least that would have provided an additional, some additional time to at least have more discussions and more time to look at what's before. So is there a need or a rush or an obligation to move forward at this time versus 2 weeks from now?
That's entirely at your discretion. The difficulty.
Well, I understand it's at my discretion, but I just want to make sure that there's nothing pressing that would delay or subject this ordinance in any adverse way.
We were scheduled to be before you for implementation beginning in July of this year. This is
Okay.
August, middle of August. The finalization of this ordinance would not be until the 1st of September. Then we have to get geared up within our Hanson system, make the transition from the value-based system in Hanson to the cost-based system, train our staff. A lot of the concerns that NAOP has expressed are more implementation issues than they are issues with the concept itself. And agreed, I want to continue to work with them on the implementation, because I don't want the implementation to go awry and somebody in the department get a wild hair and we start interpreting things strange and charging more money than we have to. The problem with the time frame, does 2 weeks kill us? I don't know, but another month will kill us, because I need the fees to be in place to get the revenues for the year to be able to make a value determination and to be able to not have to lay off those folks. I've already laid off 9 folks that these fees were intended to keep from having to lay off. It was the purpose of this fee study was to avoid the layoff that we did in June. We were not able to get it done. We've
Quick
been
enough.
trying to respond. Now it puts us at a time frame that if we don't get moving, I'm looking at the layoff in June of next year as well.
Right. So, but 2 weeks from now.
That's your goal. Yes, sir.
Okay. Great.
I think on behalf of NAOP, we could do the documentation, the document review that we haven't been able to do in the last day, within the next 2 weeks before this goes to city council. So hopefully we're not jumping up at the city council meeting and protesting.
Well, that's what I was going to suggest,
You know,
Chairman.
and
Ms.
we do have that period of time between now and.
If we send this to council with the due pass, again, this is how the process works. Any ordinance changes, any new bills always come to recommending to be vetted by anybody who's interested in it. Then it goes to council, and we do it all over again to offer that second opportunity for the public or any interested entities to voice their concerns and thoughts as we move forward.
Well, then what we will do, because what will happen is if in fact there are some adjustments, then those adjustments will be coming to the city council new to you and I both.
They will be, but that'll give you time to vet it, take a look at it, work closely with him. Something changes, you as staff can always recommend we obey this another 2 weeks, even after the second or the first city council meeting in September. So I think we can do that. If we let this thing move on, let it go to council as it is, you guys work with Chris's department, you work with them. I think the most important thing is we've created that communication. You created that communication with the industries. That's so important. Let's get this thing moving. We'll get it to council. If it's no good at council, we'll holler and scream about it then.
If I might suggest, Mr. Chairman, and Val can correct me here if I'm wrong, there is another recommending committee between now and the 1st of September council meeting. That would be on the 30th of August.
That's correct.
If we move it to that recommending.
And that's
leave it
the
on
reason
1st
why I
of
asked, to
September
leave it on the
council
1st of
meeting.
September council meeting. We can do that.
We can do that.
So then what will my motion be?
To obey it 2 weeks. It comes back on August 30th, and then it'll come to
It'll
us
still
the
be on the
following day.
council.
It'll still be on September 1st.
agenda.
Is that your motion?
No, that's what I'm sharing with you. We should give them an opportunity, because we'll meet again before city council anyway.
August 31st.
August 31st.
Okay, so we obey this item,
2 weeks.
2 weeks, the August 31st recommending committee.
Correct.
Still would be on the September 1st city council
Correct.
meeting. That gives you guys a couple more times to vet this.
Correct.
More in detail. and in depth.
31st and the 1st.
That's my motion. Uh-oh. The attorney's raising his hand.
I'm not gonna mess with your motion, but I just wanted to indicate that what we'll do is we'll put the First Amendment. By the way, the First Amendment that I handed out to you includes
Yes.
the things about shell building, the committee, and what was the third thing? High rise? Yeah. Mistakenly, it says Chris Knight as the proposer, when it should have been Councilman Reese who sponsored the original bill, so we'll get that corrected. That will go into your agenda for the 1st. On the 31st here, if there's going to be changes, we'll bring you back a proposed Second Amendment. What that will do, though, is we'll have to hand walk to the council meeting the next day in Second Amendment form, if there is one.
And
then-
you've
and
done
then
that
it will be-
before.
We've done that before, and sometimes you like it, and sometimes
sometimes
you
we
say, I
don't.
haven't had a chance.
But we're expecting
We'll give
it.
you the chance to like it or not. How's that?
We're expecting it. It's when we don't expect it is when
Okay.
we dislike it.
Sound good? That's my motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. So this will be on the August 31st recommending board meeting, Suzette.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. Okay. Citizen participation, public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the committee. Is there anyone wishing to speak at this time during public participation? Seeing none, Councilman?